Dr. Sarah Chun walked into the examination hall with steady steps. Her heart beat normally. She had studied for months. The toxicology final exam was the last test before graduation. She felt ready. The room was quiet, except for the sound of chairs scraping against the floor. 30 students sat down at their desks. Each desk had a single white paper face down. Sarah looked around the room. She recognized most faces. They had all spent countless hours together in the lab. They had memorized chemical formulas. They had practiced identifying poison symptoms. They had worked hard for this moment. Professor Morrison stood at the front of the room. She was tall, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her voice was clear and firm. You have 2 hours for this examination. Turn your papers over when I say begin. Remember, read carefully and answer completely. Sarah placed her hands flat on the desk. The paper felt cool under her palm. She wondered what questions waited for her. Would they ask about snake venoms? Plant alkaloids? Heavy metal poisoning? She had prepared for everything. Begin. Professor Morrison announced. Sarah flipped the paper over. Her eyes widened. There was only one question on the entire page. The black text stared back at her. Name one naturally occurring toxin found in common household items. She blinked twice. That was it? Just one question? After months of studying complex molecular structures and metabolic pathways, they wanted her to name just one toxin? Around her, other students were already writing. She heard pens scratching on paper. Some students looked relaxed. A few seemed confused like her. The most were writing quickly. Sarah picked up her pen. This seemed too easy. She thought about the simplest answer. Cyanide in apple seeds. Everyone knew that one. She started to write, but stopped. Maybe they wanted something more specific. Something that showed deeper knowledge. To her left sat Marcus Rivera. He was older than most students. Sarah remembered he used to be a chef before starting medical school. He looked focused as he wrote. His hand moved steadily across the paper. He seemed to know exactly what to write. Sarah decided on her answer. Solanine in green potatoes. It was common enough that anyone might have green potatoes at home. But it was also specific enough to show she understood plant glycoalkaloids. She wrote her answer in neat handwriting. It took less than 2 minutes. She looked at her watch. 1 hour and 58 minutes remained. This felt strange. Other students were finishing too. Jake Martinez, who sat in front of her, had already put his pen down. He stretched his arms above his head and yawned. Maria Santos gathered her things quietly. She walked to the front to submit her paper. Sarah read the question again. Name one naturally occurring toxin found in common household items. The word one was clear. They wanted a single answer. She had given them one. Solanine. That should be enough. But Marcus was still writing. His hand moved across the paper without stopping. Sarah could not see what he was writing from her angle, but his pen kept moving, line after line. His paper was filling up with text. More students finished and left. The room became quieter. Soon only half the students remained. Then only a quarter. Sarah felt uncomfortable sitting there with her single-line answer. Should she add more detail? Explain the chemical structure? Describe the symptoms of solanine poisoning? She decided to add a brief explanation. Solanine is a glycoalkaloid found in potatoes that have been exposed to light and turned green. It can cause nausea, vomiting, and neurological symptoms if consumed in large amounts. That felt better, more complete. She looked around again. Only 6 students remained in the room. Marcus was still writing. His concentration never broke. What could he possibly be writing about for so long? Professor Morrison walked between the desks. She glanced at the remaining papers. When she passed Marcus, she paused. She looked at his paper for a moment. Her eyebrows raised slightly. She continued walking. Sarah wondered if she was missing something important. Had she misunderstood the question? She read it one more time. Name one naturally occurring toxin found in common household items. No, it was clear. One toxin. She had named one. The minutes passed slowly. Sarah checked her watch again. 30 minutes had gone by since she finished writing. Marcus showed no signs of stopping. His paper was now covered with small, neat handwriting. He had flipped to the back of the page and was still writing. 2 more students submitted their papers and left. Now only 4 remained. Sarah felt silly sitting there with her short answer. But she also felt confident it was correct. Sometimes the simple answer was the right answer. Professor Morrison approached Marcus again. This time, she stopped beside his desk. Mr. Rivera, she said quietly, you understand this is asking for one toxin, correct? Marcus looked up from his paper. His dark eyes were focused but calm. Yes, Professor. I understand the question. Very well. Continue. Sarah was curious now. What was Marcus writing? How many toxins could someone possibly know from household items? She thought about her own kitchen at home. Cleaning supplies had chemicals, but those were not naturally occurring. Medications could be toxic, but again, not natural compounds found in common items. Marcus kept writing. His hand moved steadily. No hesitation. No pausing to think. Like he was copying from a list in his mind, Sarah decided to submit her answer. She had given a correct response. Adding more would not make it better. She gathered her things and walked to the front of the room. Professor Morrison took her paper with a smile. Thank you, Dr. Chun. Well done. As Sarah walked toward the door, she glanced back at Marcus. He was still writing. His paper looked like a small book now. Whatever he knew about household toxins was far more than anyone expected. Sarah left the examination hall wondering what knowledge Marcus carried from his years as a chef. She had studied toxicology from textbooks, but Marcus had worked with food every day. Real food, real kitchens, real dangers. The hallway was filled with her classmates discussing their answers. Most had written similar things. Apple seeds, green potatoes, raw kidney beans. Simple, correct answers to a simple question. But inside the examination room, Marcus Rivera continued writing. His pen moved across the paper like he was documenting secrets that only someone who had spent years in professional kitchens could know. Marcus Rivera had not always known about kitchen toxins. 10 years ago, he was just another young cook trying to make it in the restaurant business. He was 24 years old and working at Bella Vista, an upscale Italian restaurant in downtown Chicago. The head chef was demanding. The hours were long, but Marcus loved the energy of the kitchen. That Tuesday night in September changed everything. The restaurant was busy. Orders came in fast. Marcus was working the vegetable station. He had prepared a special dish with white kidney beans. The recipe looked simple enough. Soak the beans overnight. Cook them until tender. Toss with herbs and olive oil. Marcus had followed the recipe exactly. Or so he thought. The beans looked perfect when he served them. White and creamy. The customers seemed happy. The orders kept coming. 2 hours after dinner service ended, Marcus got a phone call. It was from Chicago General Hospital. 3 customers from Bella Vista were in the emergency room. They were vomiting violently. They had severe stomach cramps. The doctors wanted to know what they had eaten. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He remembered the kidney bean dish. Those 3 customers had all ordered it. He called Chef Romano immediately. What did you do wrong? Chef Romano demanded when he arrived at the restaurant. His voice was angry and scared. Marcus showed him the recipe. He explained every step. Chef Romano examined the beans. They looked normal. They smelled fine. But something was clearly wrong. The next morning brought worse news. 2 more customers were in the hospital. The health department was investigating. The restaurant might be shut down. Chef Romano was furious. "How long did you cook the beans?" The health inspector asked Marcus. 40 minutes, Marcus replied. Just like the recipe said. The inspector shook his head. White kidney beans need to be boiled hard for at least 10 minutes before reducing the heat. You probably simmered them the whole time. That does not destroy the lectins. Marcus had never heard the word lectins before. The inspector explained that kidney beans contain natural toxins called phytohemagglutinin. These lectins could cause severe food poisoning if the beans were not cooked properly. Just a few undercooked beans could make someone very sick. But they tasted fine, Marcus said. They looked completely cooked. Lectins have no taste, the inspector explained. No smell. No obvious signs. The beans can look perfectly done, but still be dangerous. Marcus felt sick himself. He had poisoned 5 people because he did not know about lectins. Because he had followed a recipe without understanding the science behind it. All 5 customers recovered within a few days. But the damage to Bella Vista was serious. The restaurant lost its license for 2 weeks. Several staff members were fired. Marcus kept his job, but barely. That night, Marcus went to the library. He checked out every book he could find about food safety. He read about lectins in beans. He learned about solanine in potatoes. He discovered that rhubarb leaves contain oxalic acid. He found out that cassava could release cyanide, if not prepared correctly. Marcus had always thought cooking was about flavor and technique. Now he realized it was also about chemistry. Every ingredient had the potential to help or harm. Knowledge could mean the difference between a great meal and a trip to the hospital. He bought a notebook and started writing down everything he learned. Not just recipes, but warnings, safety notes, chemical names, proper cooking methods. His notebook grew thick with information most chefs never bothered to learn. Chef Romano noticed a change in Marcus. "You are becoming obsessed," he said. "Cooking should be art, not science class." But Marcus could not stop learning. Every ingredient became a puzzle to solve. Why did some people get sick from eating raw sprouts? What made wild mushrooms dangerous? How could something as common as nutmeg become toxic in large amounts? His coworkers started calling him Professor as a joke. When someone had a question about food safety, they asked Marcus. When a new ingredient appeared in the kitchen, Marcus researched it first. Marcus learned that green potatoes contain solanine, the same chemical found in deadly nightshade. He discovered that apple seeds release cyanide when chewed. He found out that raw honey could contain botulism spores dangerous to babies. The more he learned, the more amazed he became. His kitchen was filled with potential poisons that most people use safely every day. The difference between food and poison was often just a matter of dose, preparation, or timing. He learned about psoralins in celery that could cause skin burns in sunlight. He studied aflatoxins in old peanuts and corn. He memorized the symptoms of ergot poisoning from contaminated grains. Other chefs thought Marcus was going too far. People have been eating these foods for thousands of years, they said. Stop worrying so much. But Marcus remembered those 5 customers in the hospital. He remembered the fear in their families' voices. He never wanted to hurt anyone again through ignorance. Marcus started teaching other kitchen staff about the dangers he was learning. He showed them how to identify green spots on potatoes. He explained why raw red kidney beans needed special cooking. He demonstrated proper mushroom identification. Some listened. Others rolled their eyes. But Marcus kept teaching anyway. Years passed. Marcus worked in different restaurants. He moved from Chicago to Seattle to New York. His reputation grew, not just as a good cook, but as someone who knew how to keep people safe. Restaurant owners started hiring Marcus specifically for his safety knowledge. He helped them avoid the kind of incident that had nearly destroyed Bella Vista. He trained their staff. He reviewed their procedures. Marcus's notebook grew into multiple volumes. He had pages about plant alkaloids, sections on bacterial toxins, chapters on natural pesticides in fruits and vegetables. Information that could fill a small library. But the knowledge was not just academic for Marcus. Every piece of information was connected to a real story, a real kitchen, a real moment when the wrong choice could hurt someone. When Marcus decided to go to medical school, his friends were surprised. Why leave cooking? Why start over in a completely different field? Marcus knew the answer was simple. In the kitchen, he had learned that food could be medicine or poison. In medical school, he wanted to understand why. He wanted to learn the science behind what he had observed. He wanted to help people who had been poisoned, whether by accident or ignorance. The transition was not easy. Medical school was demanding. The other students were younger and had different backgrounds. But Marcus brought something unique to his studies. He had real experience with toxins that existed outside laboratories and textbooks. His professors were impressed by his practical knowledge. His classmates came to him with questions about food poisoning cases. Marcus became the unofficial expert on toxicology as it related to everyday life. Now, sitting in the examination room, Marcus faced a simple question about household toxins. But for him, it was not simple at all. It was a chance to share 10 years of hard-earned knowledge. A chance to show that the kitchen was one of the most complex chemical laboratories most people would ever encounter. Marcus kept writing. Each toxin he listed represented a lesson learned, a danger avoided, a piece of knowledge that could save someone's life. 20 minutes had passed since the exam began. Marcus Rivera's hand moved steadily across the paper. His pen had not stopped once. The words flowed from his memory like water from a broken dam. He started with the obvious ones, the toxins that most people knew about or should know about. Solanine in green potatoes, oxalic acid in rhubarb leaves, ricin in castor beans. These were the dangerous compounds that cooking schools sometimes mentioned, the ones that appeared in basic food safety courses. But Marcus knew so much more. His years in professional kitchens had taught him about dangers that most people never considered. His notebook research had revealed toxins hiding in the most innocent-looking ingredients. He wrote about glycoalkaloids, not just solanine, but the whole family of compounds found in nightshade plants. Alpha-solanine and alpha-chaconine in potatoes, tomatine in green tomatoes. These chemicals protected plants from insects and fungi. They could protect plants from humans too, if people were not careful. Marcus remembered the night at Le Bonardin when a line cook had prepared a sauce with green tomatoes. The cook thought they were just unripe. Marcus had caught the mistake before the sauce reached any customers. Green tomatoes contained enough tomatine to cause stomach problems. Not deadly, but definitely unpleasant. He moved on to write about lectins, the compounds that had nearly ended his cooking career at Bella Vista. Phytohemagglutine in red kidney beans, lectin in castor beans that worked alongside ricin, pokeweed myogen in pokeweed berries that some people tried to eat as a folk remedy. Each lectin had its own personality. Some caused violent vomiting. Others attacked red blood cells. A few could stop protein synthesis in cells entirely. The human body had no natural defense against most of them. Marcus's handwriting stayed neat despite his speed. Years of writing orders in busy kitchens had taught him to write clearly under pressure. Each toxin got its own line. Each line included the compound name, the source, and a brief note about its effects. Across the room, other students were finishing their exams. Marcus heard chairs scraping, papers rustling, footsteps toward the front of the room. But he kept writing. The question had asked for one toxin, but Marcus could not stop at one when he knew about so many. He wrote about cyanogenic glycosides, amygdalin in bitter almonds and apricot pits, linamarin in cassava roots, dorin in sorghum leaves. These compounds released hydrogen cyanide when plant cells were damaged. Chewing or grinding activated the poison. Marcus remembered reading about children who had died from eating too many apricot pits. The bitter taste should have warned them, but kids sometimes ignored bad tastes. A few ounces of bitter almonds could kill an adult. Children needed much less. He documented the alkaloids next. Caffeine in coffee beans and tea leaves. Theobromine in chocolate and cocoa. Nicotine in tobacco leaves that sometimes contaminated vegetables grown in old tobacco fields. Solanine appeared on this list too, since it was both an alkaloid and a glycocaloid. The methylxanthines were interesting. Caffeine and theobromine were closely related. Both could be toxic in high doses. But most people never consumed enough to cause problems. Dogs were different. Chocolate could kill dogs because they could not process theobromine efficiently. Marcus had seen kitchen staff give chocolate scraps to restaurant dogs. He always stopped them. Professor Morrison walked past his desk again. She looked at his paper. Marcus could see surprise in her expression, but she said nothing. The exam rules allowed students to write as much as they wanted. Marcus was following the rules, even if his interpretation was unusual. He continued with plant defense compounds. Serralins in celery, parsnips, and figs. These chemicals caused photodermatitis. Skin contact followed by sunlight created painful burns. Most people never noticed because they washed vegetables before eating them. But farm workers and grocery handlers sometimes developed strange rashes. Marcus wrote about pyrrolizidine alkaloids in comfrey and some honey. These compounds caused liver damage that might not show symptoms for months or years. People use comfrey as an herbal remedy without knowing about the danger. Some honey contained pyrrolizidine alkaloids when bees visited the wrong flowers. He added saponins to his list. Compounds in quinoa that caused bitter taste and digestive problems if not washed properly. Saponins in raw potatoes that added to the toxicity of solanine. Natural detergents that could damage cell membranes in the digestive system. The room was getting quieter. Only 5 students remained. Marcus glanced around briefly, then returned to his writing. He was documenting oxalates now. Oxalic acid in rhubarb leaves, sorrel, and spinach. High concentrations could cause kidney stones and calcium deficiency. Cooking reduced oxalate levels, but did not eliminate them completely. He wrote about protease inhibitors in raw beans and grains. These compounds interfered with protein digestion. They could cause growth problems in children who ate too much raw flour or uncooked beans. Cooking destroyed most protease inhibitors, but some varieties were more resistant than others. Marcus added natural pesticides to his list. Rotenone in some tropical plants that people used as fish poison. Pyrethrin in chrysanthemums that killed insects but could cause allergic reactions in humans. Plants had been making pesticides long before humans invented synthetic chemicals. His hand was starting to cramp, but Marcus kept writing. He documented aflatoxins in moldy grains and nuts. These fungal toxins were among the most potent carcinogens known. Proper storage prevented most problems, but old peanut butter and stale corn could contain dangerous levels. He wrote about ergot alkaloids in rye and other grains infected with fungus. Ergotism had caused mass poisonings throughout history. The Salem witch trials might have involved ergot poisoning from contaminated grain. Modern grain processing reduced the risk, but ergot still appeared occasionally. Marcus added capsaicin to his list. the compound that made peppers hot. In small amounts, capsaicin was harmless. In large concentrations, it could cause chemical burns and breathing problems. Police used pepper spray as a weapon because capsaicin was so effective at causing temporary disability. He documented tannins in tea, coffee, and unripe fruits. High levels could interfere with iron absorption and cause digestive problems. Wine tannins came from grape skins and seeds. The astringent taste warned people about the compounds, but some ignored the warning. Professor Morrison checked her watch. 1 hour remained in the exam period. She looked at Marcus's paper again. The writing covered both sides of the original sheet. Marcus had requested additional paper from a proctor. He was now filling a second page with more toxins. Marcus wrote about glucosinolates in cabbage, broccoli, and mustard. These compounds created the sharp taste in cruciferous vegetables. They could interfere with thyroid function if consumed in very large amounts. But they also had protective effects against some cancers. Dose and preparation mattered. He added natural salicylates to his list. Compounds similar to aspirin found in many fruits and vegetables. Most people tolerated them well. But individuals with salicylate sensitivity could develop rashes, breathing problems, and digestive issues from eating high salicylate foods. Marcus documented histamine in aged and fermented foods. Fish that was not stored properly could develop dangerous histamine levels. Cheese, wine, and fermented vegetables contained natural histamine that could trigger reactions in sensitive individuals. The compound was not toxic for most people, but could be dangerous for those with histamine intolerance. He wrote about natural fluoride in tea, leaves, and some water supplies. Fluoride prevented tooth decay in small amounts, but excessive consumption could cause fluorosis and bone problems. Very strong tea consumed daily could provide too much fluoride. The list grew longer. Each entry represented knowledge that Marcus had gathered through experience, research, or sometimes painful lessons. His kitchen background had taught him that every ingredient deserved respect. Every recipe needed understanding. Every meal carried some level of risk that could be managed through knowledge. Marcus looked at his growing list. 43 toxins so far. But he was not finished. His memory held more examples, more warnings, more evidence that the average kitchen contained. A remarkable collection of natural poisons that most people use safely every day. He kept writing. The question had asked for one toxin. Marcus was providing a complete education. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison had been teaching toxicology at Northwestern University for 15 years. She had graded thousands of examinations. She had seen every possible student response to basic questions about poisons. Or so she thought. The final exams from that Tuesday afternoon sat in a neat stack on her desk. She had planned to grade them quickly. The question was simple enough. Most students would give standard answers. A few might add extra details for bonus points. She expected to finish grading in 2 hours. Dr. Morrison made herself a cup of tea and settled into her office chair. Outside her window, Chicago traffic moved slowly through the evening rush. She picked up the first exam paper and read the student's answer. Cyanide in apple seeds. Short and correct. She marked it with a check and moved to the next paper. Solanine in green potatoes. Solanine is a glycoalkaloid that develops when potatoes are exposed to light. Better detail, good understanding. Another check mark. The third paper said ricin in castor beans. The fourth mentioned oxalic acid in rhubarb leaves. All correct. All predictable. Dr. Morrison moved through the stack efficiently. She reached Sarah Chan's paper. Solanine is a glycoalkaloid found in potatoes that have been exposed to light and turned green. It can cause nausea, vomiting, and neurological symptoms if consumed in large amounts. Excellent answer. Clear understanding of both the compound and its effects. Dr. Morrison continued grading. Jig Martinez had written about lectins in undercooked kidney beans. Maria Santos chose caffeine in coffee. Tom Wilson picked nicotine in tobacco. All correct. All showing basic competence in toxicology. Then she reached Marcus Rivara's examination. Dr. Morrison stopped reading after the first few lines. She set down her red pen and picked up the paper with both hands. Marcus had not written a single answer. He had written what looked like a research paper. The writing started normally enough. Solanine in green potatoes, Solanum tuberosum, glycocaloid, causes gastrointestinal and neurological symptoms. But then it continued. Line after line. Compound after compound. Source after source. Oxalic acid in rhubarb leaves, rhubarbrum, can cause kidney stones and calcium deficiency. Ricin in castor beans, Ricinus communis, protein synthesis inhibitor. Extremely toxic. Phytohemagglutinin in raw kidney beans, Phaseolus vulgaris. Lectin causing severe gastrointestinal distress. Dr. Morrison read each entry carefully. Every chemical name was spelled correctly. Every plant name included the proper Latin classification. Every toxic effect was accurately described. This was not the work of someone guessing or padding their answer. This was someone who actually understood these compounds. She counted the entries as she read. 10 toxins, 20, 30. The list kept going. Each entry was brief but complete. No wasted words. No repetition. Just fact after fact delivered with scientific precision. Amygdalin in bitter almonds, Prunus dulcis. Amara, cyanogenic glycoside releasing hydrogen cyanide when hydrolyzed. Linamarin in cassava, Manihot esculenta. Another cyanogenic glycoside requiring proper processing to ensure safety. Serralins in celery, Appium graveolens. Furocumarins causing photodermatitis upon sun exposure. Dr. Morrison realized she was learning from this student's exam. In 15 years of teaching toxicology, she had never encountered anyone with this breadth of knowledge about naturally occurring toxins in common foods. She recognized most of the compounds Marcus had listed, but several were new to her. When had she last heard about pyrrolazidine alkaloids in comfrey? Did honey really contain these compounds sometimes? She made a note to research that claim later. Theobromine in chocolate, Theobroma cacao, methoxanthin toxic to dogs and cats. Less dangerous to humans. Capsaicin in hot peppers, capsicum species. Vanilloid compound causing chemical burns in high concentrations. Tomatine in green tomatoes, Solanum lycopersicum. Glycocaloids similar to solanine but less potent. The level of detail impressed Dr. Morrison. Marcus had not just memorized a list of toxins. He understood their chemical families. He knew their mechanisms of action. He could explain why some compounds were more dangerous than others. She found Marcus's entry about ergot alkaloids particularly interesting. Ergot alkaloids in rye, Sakali. Cereal infected with Cladoceps purpurea because of historical mass poisonings including possible Salem witch trial incidents. This showed knowledge of toxicological history as well as chemistry. Dr. Morrison reached the bottom of the first page. Marcus had used both sides of the original exam paper. Then he had continued on additional sheets. How many toxins could one person know? The second page revealed more compounds she had not expected. Natural fluoride in tea leaves. Histamine in aged fish. Protease inhibitors in raw grains. Saponins in quinoa. Each entry demonstrated understanding that went far beyond basic textbook knowledge. Aflatoxin B1 in moldy peanuts. Aspergillus flavus contamination. Potent carcinogen requiring proper storage to prevent. pyrethrin in chrysanthemums, tenacitum cinereifolium. Natural insecticide causing allergic reactions in sensitive individuals. Rotenone in Daris root, Daris elliptica. Fish poison and insecticide, now banned in many areas. Dr. Morrison stopped counting at 40 entries. Marcus was still writing when the exam ended. She wondered how many more toxins he could have listed given unlimited time. She leaned back in her chair and stared at the paper. In 15 years of teaching, she had never seen anything like this. Her colleagues needed to see this examination. The chemistry department would be interested. The food science program would want copies. Dr. Morrison picked up her phone and dialed Dr. Robert Chen, the department head. Robert, you need to see something. One of our students just wrote the most remarkable toxicology exam I have ever graded. Remarkable how? Dr. Chen asked. He listed 47 naturally occurring toxins found in household items, with correct chemical names, Latin species names, and accurate descriptions of toxic effects. I asked for one toxin. He gave me a graduate-level reference guide. There was silence on the phone. Then Dr. Chen said, "Bring it to my office. I want to see this." Dr. Morrison gathered Marcus's exam papers and walked down the hall. Dr. Chen's office was cluttered with journals and research papers. He cleared a space on his desk for Marcus's examination. Dr. Chen read for several minutes without speaking. His eyebrows rose higher as he continued through the list. Finally, he looked up at Dr. Morrison. Who is this student? What is his background? Dr. Morrison checked her class roster. Marcus Rivera, age 34. Previous career as a professional chef. Excellent grades in all courses. Usually quiet in class, but asked very thoughtful questions. A chef, Dr. Chen repeated. That explains everything. He learned about these toxins through practical experience. Real kitchens deal with these compounds every day. Most of us only know them from textbooks. Dr. Chen continued reading. Look at this entry about glucosinolates in cruciferous vegetables. He mentions both the toxic effects and the protective effects against cancer. That shows sophisticated understanding of dose-response relationships. Dr. Morrison nodded. Every entry demonstrates real knowledge. Not memorization, understanding. We need to share this, Dr. Chen said. The food science department will want to see it. Public health would be interested. This could be a teaching tool. Dr. Morrison agreed. Should we contact the student? Ask him about his sources? Definitely. I would like to understand how he acquired this knowledge. And I think our graduate students could benefit from hearing about practical applications of toxicology. Dr. Chen made copies of Marcus's exam. Within a week, the papers had circulated through multiple departments. Faculty members who had never heard of Marcus Rivera were asking about the student who knew more about food toxins than most professors. The exam became famous in academic circles. Not because it was perfect, but because it demonstrated something rarely seen in university settings. Real-world expertise applied to academic knowledge. Practical experience illuminating theoretical concepts. Dr. Morrison kept the original exam in her office. She used it in graduate seminars as an example of how different backgrounds could contribute to scientific understanding. The students were always amazed by the breadth of knowledge Marcus had displayed, but Dr. Morrison was most impressed by something else. Marcus had answered exactly what the question asked. He had named naturally occurring toxins found in household items. He had just named 47 of them instead of one. The exam showed that the right question could reveal unexpected depths of knowledge. And sometimes the best students were not the ones who gave the expected answers, but the ones who showed you how much you still had to learn. 3 days after the examination, Marcus Rivera received an unexpected email. Dr. Morrison wanted to see him in her office. The message was polite but gave no details. Marcus wondered if he had done something wrong. He knocked on Dr. Morrison's office door at the scheduled time. She invited him in with a warm smile. Her desk was covered with papers and journals as usual, but Marcus noticed his handwriting prominently in the center. "Please sit down, Mr. Rivera," Dr. Morrison said. "I want to discuss your toxicology final with you." Marcus felt nervous. Had he misunderstood the question? Had his long answer violated some rule he did not know about? "Your examination was quite remarkable," Dr. Morrison continued. "I have been teaching toxicology for 15 years. I have never seen anything like what you wrote." Marcus relaxed slightly. "I hope I answered the question correctly." "You did indeed. But you answered it in a way that surprised everyone who has read your paper." Dr. Morrison picked up his exam. "You listed 47 naturally occurring toxins, with correct chemical names, accurate sources, and proper descriptions of their effects." "The question asked for one toxin," Marcus said. "I gave you one. Then I kept thinking of others." Dr. Morrison laughed. "That is exactly what makes this so interesting. Where did you learn about all these compounds?" "Our textbooks cover maybe a dozen of them." Marcus thought about how to explain. "I learned them in kitchens. Real kitchens where food safety matters. When you are cooking for hundreds of people every night, you need to know what can hurt them." "Tell me about that," Dr. Morrison said. Marcus described his early career. The incident with kidney beans at Bella Vista. His obsession with learning about food toxins after that poisoning. The notebooks he kept. The research he did. The years of accumulating knowledge that most chefs never bothered to learn. Dr. Morrison listened carefully. "So you learned about ricin because castor oil is used in cooking?" "Not exactly," Marcus said. "I learned about ricin because I wanted to understand how toxic compounds work. Castor beans contain ricin, but castor oil is safe because ricin is water-soluble, not oil-soluble. The processing removes the poison. And you know about psoralens in celery because of kitchen injuries? Line cooks sometimes get rashes from handling celery and then working under heat lamps. I researched why that happened. Psoralens cause photodermatitis. Sunlight or UV light triggers the reaction after skin contact." Dr. Morrison was taking notes. "Your knowledge is remarkably practical. Most of us learn these compounds as abstract chemicals. You understand them as real hazards that affect real people." Marcus nodded. "Every toxin on that list represents something that could go wrong in a kitchen. Green potatoes, moldy grains, undercooked beans, raw flour, old nuts. These are everyday dangers that most cooks never think about." "Dr. Chun wants to meet with you," Dr. Morrison said. "He is our department head. He was very impressed by your examination." The meeting with Dr. Chun happened the following day. He asked Marcus many of the same questions Dr. Morrison had asked, but he also wanted to know about Marcus's future plans. "Have you considered specializing in food-related toxicology?" Dr. Chun asked. "I had not thought about it specifically," Marcus replied, "but it makes sense. My background could be useful in that field." "It would be more than useful. It would be revolutionary. Most toxicologists study poisons in laboratory settings. You have real experience with how these compounds affect people in the real world." Dr. Chun explained that the university was starting a new research program. They wanted to study food-related poisonings from a practical perspective. They needed someone who understood both the science and the real-world applications. "Would you be interested in working with us on this project?" Dr. Chun asked. Marcus felt excited. This was exactly the kind of work he had hoped to do, combining his kitchen experience with medical knowledge, helping prevent the kind of accidents that had nearly ended his cooking career. "Yes," Marcus said. "I would be very interested." Word about Marcus's examination spread beyond Northwestern University. Food science programs at other schools requested copies. Public health departments wanted to consult with him. Restaurant associations asked him to speak at their conferences. Dr. Morrison used Marcus's exam in her graduate courses. She would show students the paper and ask them to identify compounds they had never heard of. Most students could recognize only half the toxins Marcus had listed. This shows you how much practical knowledge exists outside academic settings, Dr. Morrison would tell her students. Mr. Rivera learned these compounds because his job required him to protect people from them. How many of you could identify 47 toxins found in your own kitchen? Marcus graduated at the top of his toxicology class. His practical knowledge combined with strong academic performance made him an ideal candidate for specialized training. Several hospitals offered him positions in their poison control centers, thought he chose to work at Chicago General Hospital, the same hospital where those 5 kidney bean victims had been treated years earlier. The same emergency room where Marcus had first learned about lectins and food poisoning. Dr. Patricia Williams ran the Poison Control Center. She had read about Marcus's famous examination. She was eager to work with someone who understood food toxins from practical experience. Most of our food poisoning cases involve common ingredients, Dr. Williams explained during Marcus's first week. Green potatoes, undercooked beans, moldy grain products, wild mushrooms. Having someone who actually understands these foods will be invaluable. Marcus's first major case came 2 weeks into his new job. A family had gotten sick after eating at a high-end restaurant. The symptoms suggested plant alkaloid poisoning, but the restaurant insisted their ingredients were fresh and properly prepared. Marcus visited the restaurant with health department investigators. He examined their potato storage. He found several green potatoes mixed with normal ones. The kitchen staff had not noticed the difference. They had served green potatoes in an expensive dish to 12 customers. "We always check our potatoes," the head chef insisted. "These look fine." Marcus showed him the subtle green tint. This level of solanine can cause symptoms within hours. The green color is not always obvious under restaurant lighting. The investigation confirmed Marcus's diagnosis. All 12 affected customers had eaten the potato dish. The restaurant implemented better vegetable inspection procedures. No one was seriously harmed, but it could have been worse with a larger dose. Cases like this became Marcus's specialty. Food poisonings that other doctors might struggle to diagnose. Plant toxins that emergency room physicians rarely encountered. Situations where understanding food chemistry was as important as understanding medicine. Marcus also began teaching. He gave lectures to culinary schools about food safety. He trained restaurant inspectors about natural toxins in common ingredients. He spoke at medical conferences about food-related poisoning cases. His message was always the same. The kitchen is a chemistry laboratory. Every ingredient contains potential hazards. Knowledge and proper preparation keep people safe. Ignorance can hurt or kill. The notebooks Marcus had kept during his cooking years became the foundation for a comprehensive guide to food toxins. Publishers were interested. Food safety organizations wanted copies. Medical schools requested permission to use his materials in their curricula. Dr. Morrison stayed in touch with Marcus after his graduation. She was proud of how he had used his unique background to build a new career. His examination had become legendary in toxicology circles. Students still asked about the chef who knew 47 household toxins. "Do you ever regret leaving the kitchen?" Dr. Morrison asked during one of their meetings. Marcus thought about the question. "I never really left the kitchen. I just found a different way to use what I learned there. Instead of preventing food poisoning by cooking properly, I prevent it by teaching others and treating the victims when prevention fails." "And you are happy with your choice?" "Very happy. I can help more people this way. When I was a chef, I could only protect the customers in my restaurant. Now I can help protect everyone. Marcus's story became an inspiration for other career changers. People with practical experience in various fields began applying to medical school. Former mechanics who understood chemical exposures. Ex-farmers who knew about pesticide poisoning. Construction workers who had dealt with occupational toxins. Universities realized they had been missing valuable perspectives. Real-world experience could illuminate academic knowledge in unexpected ways. The best students were not always the ones with perfect grades. Sometimes, they were the ones who brought practical wisdom from completely different careers. Marcus Rivera had answered a simple question about toxins, but his answer had demonstrated something profound. Knowledge exists in many forms. Experience teaches lessons that textbooks cannot capture. The most valuable insights often come from the intersection of theory and practice. A single examination had changed how an entire university thought about expertise. And it had launched a new career dedicated to protecting people from the hidden dangers that exist in every kitchen.